Hey, good morning, everybody. How are we doing? This is Jeremiah, and we are webinaring it up again. Hope you're ready for some fun. I have a couple housekeeping items, the usual. We are recording this, so to all you in the future watching this, hello. To you watching this live, it is live, so there is that Q&A button down there at the bottom for question and answer. So make note of it, and I even recommend just clicking it right now. Get that Q&A window situated. So it's going to be quicker for you to type a question when it comes up, but also note you're going to be able to see the answers that we type to other people's questions. So it makes a fun little companion while you're watching the webinar. It is live. We're here. We're ready to answer your questions. And we are going over a very important thing, sheet setup. And this is one of those things where, I'm going to be honest, we do have really good tech support. We all know this, I hope. But one of the hallmarks of our tech support is that you all can send us your files. And so we see a lot of files, and this is where I'm going to be honest. We see bad practices. I'm going to just be blunt. Yes, there's a lot of ways to do sheet setup in CAD. I think we all know somebody, or maybe are guilty ourselves, of not even using paper space, just putting a large title block right in model space. It's not best CAD practices. So what we're showing today is what we would definitely prefer, because we don't want to waste our time trying to help someone unwind a mess of a sheet setup that's causing problems with then their xrefs or their placing of details. So this webinar is showing uh, best CAD practices for sheet setup, and we really hope that you will pay heed to it. And we are here to also answer the questions of why we are recommending certain things. We'll get more to that in a bit when we talk about xrefing into separate sheet files. That tends to get a little bit of a debate between CAD managers at some firms, but that's what we're here for. And I actually would encourage it. Please tell me, your honest thoughts and your issues with sheet setup. That's what this interactivity here is for. So that's all my yibber yabber. Now I'm going to leave it to Paul to take this away.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another webinar. Thank you, Jared, for that introduction. He was right on point. We are going over sheet index today and sort of some techniques to organizing your sheets within LandFX and managing those. So here is an outline for the day. We're going to start off with an overview of the sheet index in LandFX. Then I will show off my file arrangement and kind of how I prefer to set those up. Then some recommendations for setting up your sheets. And then we'll jump into a demonstration setting up our different sheet files. And during this demonstration, I will show off making an easily accessible title block. There's a couple different methods for that. And then we'll set up some sheet files and then add designs to those sheet files, and then create a detail sheet file as well. So a little bit of everything here. And then we'll finish it up with some different plotting options for those sheets, because that's sort of the end goal here, right? Is to set up your sheets so that they can be ultimately printed. First off, let's talk about the sheet index. The sheet index is a LandFX tool for managing sheets associated with your project. With this tool, you can easily organize, edit, and add sheets to the associated layout tab within your drawing, including detail sheets. And the sheet index, in case you don't know where it is, it's accessible through the project manager in the FX admin tab, or there's a button directly for it in the details tab called the sheet index button there. And within this dialog box, you can clearly reference the sheet number, title, and DWG associated with that sheet as it has been set up for that project. So we try to make it really clear with what's going on here with your sheets. In today's example drawings, I will be working with a very simple kind of drawing setup, just to keep everything, real simple and easy to understand. I'm just using kind of a basic base file. Then I'm going to be showing a site and hardscape plan, and a planting plan and an irrigation plan file. And you probably already know this, but you're going to be using the same project data for all of these. That's what it's there for. And when we set up our sheets, we're going to be setting up individual DWG files for each sheet. And these files will be appropriately named to correspond with its sheet. Examples here, we have our sheets up front, and those kind of correspond to the sheets that are here printed. So for this example today, I'm going to have a site plan on sheet L-101, irrigation on L-501, planting on L-201, and details on L-502. And obviously that'll be a little more clear once I actually go in and set those up. And I just wanted to show my file organization because it's kind of ties into all of this. It is ultimately up to how you prefer to set these up. But for me personally, I kind of like a simple structure that's really organized and kind of lets me know exactly where I am within that project. So I kind of have an overarching project folder. You could start that. You could just have the project number in there. That's a good way to keep it organized so that everything is ordered by the actual number of the project. You could have the name a little less organized that way, but maybe a hybrid of both, having the number and the name is a good idea. But within that folder, I have a folder to keep my xref files. That can include your consultant drawings like architect and civil drawings. And I want to keep those in their own separate folder. And then for each design file that I'm using, I'll have a separate folder for that as well. So in this case, I have a site and hardscape plan, planting plan, irrigation plan. All those design files are in their own design folder there. And then I will have a separate folder for my sheets, which will hold all the different sheets as shown there. And you may have read our documentation or heard from one of us that we recommend that you create a unique DWG file for each sheet and xref your design files into these sheet files. And not everybody does this. I know when I was learning CAD, I was more so taught just to, create several layouts within my design file and set up my sheets that way, which is an option, but we don't recommend it. And the biggest reason is number one here, and that's it removes the possibility of losing your sheets due to issues in the design file. And the probably biggest example of that is that proxy object drawing corruption is a real thing and can cause devastating effects to your drawing files. And if you were to come across drawing corruption such as this, the proper way to clean out those objects and to get your drawing in working order again is to create a clean export or to doubly block out your CAD work so that you can keep that. But in doing so, you can't take the layouts with it. Also, if you use our nuke tool, which is kind of like an all-in-one cleaning tool, it basically takes out your layouts as well. So it would be a total bummer if you set up all of your sheets, because this can take a bit of effort and a lot of time to set up your sheets. And if you do those in your design file and then something happens to that design file where you need to get a clean export out of that file, you're going to lose all the work you did on your layouts. So we recommend doing one DWG per sheet, keeping everything kind of nice and separated. And another sort of argument for this is that it keeps everything organized. if you need to make adjustments to your design files, you know where that is. You go to the design file, you make design changes. If you need to make changes to your sheets, you go to the sheet file. And so it makes a lot of sense doing it that way. And as I kind of mentioned before, when you take in a consultant file to be used as an xref, you absolutely need to clean the file. Speaking from experience here, we see a lot of tech support tickets here at the office, and a lot, if not the majority, of the more severe issues that we've seen stem from drawing corruption. And if the extra files were just cleaned before they were used, the issue could have been avoided. And it's always really heartbreaking when a client does send in their drawing and we open it up and it's hosed, or there's not a great way to fix it other than going through a deep cleaning. Sometimes even cleaning won't help it. And so we have to go back and tell them, like, you put all these hours into this project, but because of improper CAD setup and not cleaning your consultant drawings, it's resulted in a great loss of work. So if you are unaware of how to clean your files, please go to our website and the documentation, and you can use that search bar there to search, drawing cleanup or nuke tool or anything like that. And it should pull open pages like this, which go through in detail how to clean your drawings in xrefs. And here, I just wanted to show how I've set up my xrefs. There are different ways to do this. I know in other webinars concerning sheets, specifically Jake went into sort of the difference between using overlays and attachments. For the ease of demonstration, just to make this as simple as possible, I've used the attachment method, and here you can kind of see the hierarchy of it. So on the left here, I have my site and hardscape sheet, and this is what I'll be setting up. But already I have the site and hardscape plan, which has a base file xrefed into that. And then for the planting plan that I did, I xrefed the site and hardscape plan in there, which already had the base file in it. So basically that nested xref is also showing because I'm using the attachment style. And then I put my planting plan on top of that. And then for the irrigation plan, I basically just xrefed in the planting plan, which had the site plan and the base file nested within it. So that's kind of what happens when you use that attachment style for xrefing in your drawing files. And then the detail sheet is something that I'll actually be creating here, and that's not going to have any xrefs attached. So let's get into it. Here I have CAD. First, let's just show this real quick. Here are my files that I'm working with. Like I already showed, I've got my irrigation folder, planting folder, site folder, my xrefs here. The base, I have run the nuke tool. So there is a clear separation between the clean file and what is in parentheses in quarantine is the file before I nuked it. So that's the backup it makes when you run that nuke tool. And so up top, I'm going to create a sheet for my irrigation plan. So, and as always, there are a ton of ways to go about this. There are templates to set up and whatsoever. But I'm actually going to kind of do this from scratch, just to kind of show the whole process for this first sheet, and then show a couple of different methods as we go along. So I'm going to just click Start Drawing. And I'm not sure what that opened up because I didn't check what template it's pulling this new drawing from. So I want to make sure that I'm working in the correct units. Now I know my drawings have all been in decimal feet, so I'm checking my drawing units, making sure that I'm good here, and I am. And I'm going to go to my layout here. And since this is a new layout, not based on a template, it's going to ask me to set up my page. Now, by default, it's a 8.5 by 11 inch sheet. So I'm going to go to modify. First off, I'm going to choose my plotter. I'm going to be doing everything to PDF. So I'm just going to choose the kind of the run of the mill DWG to PDF plotter. And I want to make sure my page size is correct here. So I'm using the ArcD, which is a 24 by 36 inch sheet. And just for ease in the future, I'm going to set up my plot style table, select plot transparency, and click OK. And now I have a decent 24 by 36 inch piece of paper here. I'm going to remove the default viewport for now. And so what do I need to do? I need to bring in a title block, and then I need to bring in my irrigation plan, and I need to set up viewports for this and make sure that it looks good to print. Now, what if I don't have a title block set up? How can I do that so that it is easy to use in the future? So let's show that real quick. I should have down here, excuse me, a file that I created for this. So here I have a title block that I've drawn. Now should be nothing really special about this. It is based on the one that we have already by default in the installation, but all this is, it's CAD objects, it's lines and some text objects. So there's nothing really going on with this file to make it super special. So anyone can create this. And now I want to save this in a way that I can use it on all of my sheets. And there are two ways that we kind of recommend doing this. There is the block method, where you save your title block as a block in the block library. And then you can easily access the block library and place this block in any sheet, and it's ready to go. There are pros and cons to this one. Pros are that it's pretty easy to set up, it's quick to set up, and you don't have to really manage the xref part of it. It's basically, once you place in the drawing, the block is defined in the drawing, and so you're good to go. The drawback is that if you're working with like a lot of sheets and you want to make changes to that title block, you have to either edit the block in the drawing, like the block definition within the drawing, or edit the source block, but then you have to open up each sheet that is referencing this block and redefine the block, which there's a command for that called redefine block. And so the other method of creating a title block is to save it as an xref, or bring it in as an xref rather. You save it as a DWG, but you bring it as an xref. And when you have that xref link, the real benefit to that is that if you need to make global changes to your title block, you just have to do it in that xref file, and then open up your drawings, and all the xrefs will basically reload. So it's a quicker way to create those global changes. But for this, I'm going to show the block method first, and then on my second sheet, I'll show the xref method. So here I have my basic CAD objects, and I also want to create a couple of text attributes so that whenever I place this block onto a sheet file, those will prompt me to add in this information, and it'll be consistent among my sheets. At least the style will be, the content might change. So I'm going to do this in a very simple manner, and I'm just going to go to my text manager and place a piece of Arial text right here. Draw a line with ortho on, that's F8 to turn on ortho. And I'm just going to call this sheet. And I'll center it a little more. And I'm going to place a piece of text that is smaller, Arial 12, under project here. Same thing, draw your line with ortho on. I'm just going to call this project for simplicity's sake. And so that's just text, but if I want to make it an attribute, there's a tool here in the annotate tab under text tools, FX convert all, oh no, sorry, another one, FX text to attribute. Select that and click on your piece of text. And it's going to open up the edit attribute definition dialog box. And so you can delete defaults. There is definitely many, many levels deeper you can go by adding in fields and creating more complex attributes, but we're going to keep this simple. So the tag, I'm going to change to sheet number and prompt. Maybe I'll call it sheet number. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this project text here. But I'm just going to leave it all as defaults here. And then for the date and scale, I'm just going to do a Control-C and copy this piece of text. And I'm copying it after I applied the attribute definition because it also copies it as an attribute, which means that changing it is easy. I just need to double click on it and change this to date. Click OK, double click, scale. And I just want to put this on a layer that's not layer 0 because it's just not good CAD practice. Okay, so I've set up some simple attributes here, and I've drawn this title block. And I did draw this on a 24 by 36 inch sheet. So I know that this is going to be that size title block for that size paper. And then I want to save this as a block. So how do I do that? You can go to FX Site, go to your blocks drop down, click Save Block. It says specify the insertion point. You can do 0, 0, or if you want to maybe snap to the lower left-hand corner of your title block, do that. Select Objects, window across everything here, and press Enter. And when I do that, it's going to bring me to my blocks library so that I can save this block in there. I know I want to save this in Discipline Graphics under User Defined because that's where we keep our other title block, the one that comes with your installation. And I have been in here making custom title blocks already. So let's overwrite this one. That's my land effects title block. Custom is what that code is. And I'll just overwrite it because that's what I want to call this. It brings up your block information. I can just leave this as it is and click OK. So we've set up our title block. Let's now go back to what is going to be our irrigation sheet, where I've already set up my 24 by 36 inch piece of paper. And now let's set it up. So I want to bring in my title block. So let's go to the Discipline Graphics library here, which is where I save that title block in User Defined. And here's my new title block. Click OK. And I just need to place this in here. And so here's my attributes at work. It's asking me for the scale. Let's do my typical scale, 1 inch equals 20 feet. The date is 10/23/20, I think. Project, webinar, and sheet number, probably the most important one of the set. So L dash, let's say this is irrigation, so 501. Okay. And those attributes have now been filled out with that text that I placed. Now I need to add in my actual irrigation plan. So I'm going to go into model space and I'm going to xref in that irrigation plan that I've already done. To do that, type in xref, which is the Land Effects xref tool. It's really neat, makes things real easy and clear. So I'm going into my sheet webinar, irrigation folder, irrigation plan, open. And this dialog box comes up telling me that everything looks good. My units match. Origin is 0, 0 as it should be. If you do get any, red boxes around any of these fields, that means that something is not lining up quite right. So click OK if it looks good. And here we have an irrigation plan now. Because of how I did my xrefs, the planting plan schedules, the ref node schedules, and the labels are all kind of overlapped with each other. And there are different ways to do this, but I'm just going to quickly go through and freeze those xref layers that I don't want to see. There, let's see, we got planting plan text, schedule text, I get it all, and the planting labels. So that should be planting plan, something anno, looks like these guys. Okay, there we go. Now we have the plants in the irrigation plan, but we don't have any of those pesky labels or schedule things getting in the way. So that's just the irrigation. And don't judge me on the irrigation plan. This was thrown together rather quickly for demonstration. Now, I have xref this in, and I need to set it up in my sheet. So I'm just going to do the most basic way of this, and that's just the nv command to make viewport or make view. And I just draw a window here, and it creates that viewport window into my model space. Now I just need to set this up with a proper scale. So I double click within here to activate the viewport. I'm going to go to my scale button, and I'm going to change this to the scale that has been set for the irrigation plan itself, and that's 1 inch equals 20 feet. Click OK. Yes to set active viewport scale, and pan around without zooming in or out. So I have my irrigation plan within the window. Now I can make adjustments to this window here as I see fit. Of course, it's snapping, so let's just move this over a bit, because I know that irrigation schedule can be quite wide. And I'm just going to make another viewport for the irrigation schedule. You don't have to do it this way. You can, make one big viewport and have the schedule in there. You can place the schedule in paper space. That should all work, but I'm going to create 2 viewports, one for each item, like so. Activate the viewport, click scale, click OK, and yes. And knowing that these are both scaled to 1 inch equals 20 feet means that the text objects and the labels and everything that is automatically scaled in LandFX matches up to your text style settings and everything. So everything should be scaled appropriately in doing it this fashion. So let's say I'm fine with this. Obviously I can go through and fill with some things more, but this is my irrigation sheet. I could print this out and be happy with it. Now, it is not tied to the project data. So if I go to my sheet index, always make sure you open up your project data with your drawing. So here's that project that I had already set up. This has my planting, irrigation, some detail stuff in it, everything that I've been putting into this project. Now here in the sheet index, I want to go to the new button and sheet number. We know this, it's L-501, sheet title, whatever you want to call it. You can choose to rename the layout. I like doing this. Basically, that's going to, once I assign the sheet, it's going to rename the layout as it says. So click OK when you've done that. And now we've added a sheet into the sheet index. It is still not tied to this layout. It is just now available in the project data. So to do that, go to this sheet, click on assign. And since I haven't assigned a different DWG to this, it's just looking in the one that is open. And I know I want to choose layout number 1 because that's where I set it up. Click OK. And this field here lets me know that it has been assigned to a layout or a sheet that you set up. If you are in the drawing that the sheet lies in, it'll show up with the layout name in parentheses. If you are in a different DWG file, this will display the DWG name. So I can check my settings. The DWG associated with is drawing number 3. That's because I have not saved this file yet. So important thing to do is actually save your file. So I've gone to my project folder, and I'm going to go into my sheets folder and give this a name that I can easily locate and organize. And one method for this is to do the sheet name or sheet number, and then followed by kind of what it is, maybe by code, so it's not super long, but I'm going to do irrigation underscore plant. And that's set up. So let's now look at setting up a title block for xref, and then add in some more sheets and plot. So I'm going to close this. And let's set this up as an xref. So in preparing for this, I didn't find a way to carry these text attributes through an xref. So instead, what I'm going to do is save all of the CAD line work and such, stuff that's going to be basically used on all of my sheets. I'm going to save that as a drawing to be used as an xref. But then I'm going to kind of do this hybrid approach where I just save the attribute stuff as a block so that I can bring in those attributes and still have that that attribute benefit when I'm placing my title blocks into a drawing. So to do this, you can select everything now, or you can select everything after you've done the command, but I'm going to use the W block command to write a block. And I'm going to use these settings. I've already selected my objects. You can see here 51 objects selected. And then pick point, I'm going to leave it at 0, 0 so that it comes in where it's placed currently. Actually, let's select objects again. And I'm going to leave out those text attributes. Now, when I did this in my test run, I did save it with the text attributes and they just didn't show up when I placed the xref, but let's just deselect these just in case it does do something. So holding on the shift key to deselect that stuff while selecting anything else, press enter, and find a place for this to live. So here's a decision that you're going to have to make if you do go this route. Is this a title block that your company uses on every project all the time? It's going to be kind of the end-all be-all title block. Or is this something that you're setting up specifically for this project? And that's a good question to ask yourself because it's going to kind of guide you on where you're going to save this. So because this title block I'm only using for this demonstration, I'm just going to save it into my project folder. But if this is going to be like a title block that you use on everything that your office outputs, you'll want to find a place that is going to be accessible by all of your different projects because it is a linked xref. So let's save this in my title block area here, give it a name. Probably not the best name, but lets us know what it is. Click OK. You may have noticed that my insert units are inches, but I've been working in feet, so that could cause an issue. But let's go ahead and start setting up our planting sheet. Actually, this time I'm going to skip the full setup, and I'm going to go to a drawing template that I've already set up. So these LAFX dash whatever DWT files here, those come with your installation, and it's a nice way to start off with proper units set and everything. So I could go to this decimal feet and then set up my page again, but I've already done that with this 24 by 36 inch link. So I'm going to open this, and everything should already be set up for me. I just need to insert that title block and the planting plan information. So we're xrefing this in. I'm going to type in that xref command again. That's fxref. Click OK. Navigate to that title block that I just saved with its not so great name. Click open, and I saved it with the inches, or the unit says inches, and so I'm going to get this blaring warning that your units aren't good here. Luckily, it's easy enough just to change this to feet, and everything checks out. And but I don't have those attributes. I know Amanda did a webinar on sheet setup, and I believe she went over this, where your drawing template, this DWT that opened up, she actually saved in text objects in this area so that you have those editable right away. You just have to place your xref title block, and then you can just manually adjust those text objects. That's one way to kind of go about this, but I'm going to show a different way that I think is kind of neat. I'm instead going to go back to my title block drawing here, select those attributes that I've already set up, and go to save block. And the insertion point, I'm going to actually choose this little point here as a point of reference. And then back to my discipline graphics. I'm going to save this as, let's do sheet info. There's that. Click OK. So now when I want to add in that sheet information, I can just once again go to my discipline graphics, user-defined sheet info that I just saved. And I'm going to pick that same point that I chose as my insertion point right here. And it's going to activate those attributes. So project is webinar, date is 10/23, scale is 1 inch equals a foot. No, 20 feet. Oh well. And the sheet number, this is planting. So I believe I'm going with L-201 for planting. And I did misinput my scale. Luckily, I can just double click on the attribute block, and it's going to pull up my different attributes here, and I can make adjustments to this. You just change the value to do that, and it updates right away. So that is the xref method. It's going to be up to you as to what kind of route you want to take to inputting this information. You could just do the manual way, which is text objects on everything, and just make those adjustments as you go. I like this way because I think the attribute method is kind of neat, especially if you get really into the full capabilities of attributes and being able to tie them into like a sheet set and all that. But that's definitely like a tangent for this presentation. But maybe a future presentation would be good to do on that. So let's set up now our planting plan with xfref. Go to my desktop. By the way, you probably shouldn't be saving your project files on your desktop. I just do that for webinar purposes. Planting plan. How are we doing on time? Okay, this time I'm going to skip going through and managing the xref layers and turning those off. Let's just say I've done that again. I'm going to go to my layout, create my viewport, and just repeat those same steps that we did with the irrigation plan. Activate the viewport, hit that scale button, change the scale to 1 inch equals 20 feet. Yes. Okay. Mouse is being a little jittery. All right. And then I can create one for the schedule as well. Let's just, I've already done that. Let's keep going so that we can get to everything here. So one more. Let's go to new. This time I'm going to open up the one that I set up as it. Basically, I saved a drawing template with that block defined in there. I was going to show doing this, but it doesn't ask you to update your attributes. But basically, with this file, or sorry, when you place a title block into a sheet, you can go ahead at that point and save this as a DWT. To do that, you just go to save as. You go drop this down to AutoCAD drawing template, and it's going to take you to your template folder. And you can create a folder in here or just save it along with the other options in the pool. Give it a name, save it, and then whenever you go to create a new drawing, you could select that template and it'll come up like this. But those attributes don't kick in or activate for you to change, but you can double click on them and just change the values here. So with this sheet, I am doing the site stuff. So the sheet number will be L-101, I think is what I decided for this sheet name. Once again, input that project name, date, and scale. Okay. Go into model space, do your xref, drop this down, grab your site plan, make sure all your settings are good. There we are. Looks good to me. Make a viewport. Activate. Set the scale. Yes. Maybe for this one, I'll include the schedule in the same viewport. Oh, my scroll wheel was pressed, and so it zoomed in a little bit. I'm just going to reset that viewport scale. Okay, so I'm going to save this file and my planting file. So this is L-101 underscore, I'm doing site plan, that. And I'm going to save my planting plan as well. PLNT for plant, change the number appropriately. And I have not set this up as sheets in my sheet index yet. So let's go ahead and do that. Head over to your project manager. Make sure the proper project is open. Go to new, sheet number. Let's do planting plan. So that's going to be L-201. Give it a name, rename that layout, and then assign it to the appropriate layout here. And we have our planting plan sheet set up. Let's now go to new, call it L-101 for the site plan. Give it a name. Whoop. Don't type and talk at the same time. Rename layout. Okay. Neat. Now, I want to edit this and change the DWG because I'm not in that DWG. It's open. I could just switch windows and go there, but I'm going to show how you can actually change the DWG that this is associated with. So I'm going to navigate to my site plan sheet. Yeah, okay. So it's this one that I just saved. Click open, click OK. And assign. Oh, huh. Let's go in through this way. Ah, the project wasn't assigned to it yet. So here we go. L101 site plan referencing the right DWG. So those look good. I do need to edit this because I believe I saved the file after I had set up the sheet. So let's find my irrigation sheet here. Under sheets, irrigation plan, open. That looks good. All right, and to make sure that this is, referencing the right plan, I mean, it does show the right DWG and the sheet number, but I can click the open button, which is neat. A good way to quickly open up those files and to check to make sure that it is actually set up. Looks like maybe there was a hitch there because I have been kind of switching things around. So let's go to assign. Actually, let's open up, let's just be safe and open up this sheet here. Open up our sheet index. I am, looks like maybe using two different projects. So let's go to the right plan, not that one. Sheets, irrigation plan. And open up my project manager. All right, so it looks like it's referencing the right plan here, L501 sheet. So let's just close these extra files that I don't need. Okay. And let's set up a new sheet for details. So we'll go to new. Actually, before we do that, let's open up a new drawing. For our details, perhaps we should open up one with a template in it so that we save time. And this is going to be for our detail sheet. Let's change this to L-502 for details. Okay, it's good enough. Now, when placing details, first you want to make sure that your project is assigned to this drawing. So that's the project that I'm using. Got my sheet set up. I do already have a detail folder assigned to this project, and I've already added in a few details for this demonstration. So I'm going to open up my detail manager and check those out. Close this, shrink that. Okay. And I want to place these 9 details into the sheet that is already set up. Let's go to our templates dropdown and place a sheet template, which gives us a nice grid to help guide us on placing our details. Or I think these details might be a little bigger than this grid because they're somewhat customized. And it wants us to choose a sheet. Now, when working with land effects, you don't have to use the sheet index for anything except for details. When you're placing details on the sheet, you absolutely have to use the sheet index. So right now it's recognizing that I don't have a sheet set up for this yet. And so it wants me to either select an existing one or set up a new one. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a new one. With that number, call it irrigation details, rename the layout, detail number 1. Place that in. This is a somewhat wider detail than that square opted for. So we're not going to fit, a neat 4 across the row, but that's fine. Notice that the layout name has changed when I set up that sheet. So if I actually look at my sheet index, adding this detail and creating that sheet actually created a sheet within the index, which is kind of neat. So let's go ahead and double click on my details and just kind of quickly place them along here. And I'm not going to be super careful with these. These are kind of like details in progress for being updated. So they're not necessarily top of the line, high quality details, just for demo purposes. So let's just place these in real quick, somewhat quick, as quick as my computer can handle it. Okay. Drop it in. All right, let's just place a few more here real quick. And yes, I mean, the placement of these is for speed purposes, not for how it looks. I would probably spend a little more time organizing my details so that they have a real nice balance to them on the sheet. But I would like to finish today. So here now we have a detail sheet. All these details are now associated with our sheet setup. So if we were to place like a detailed call out in a drawing, it would be able to know which sheet it's on and what the number of the detail is. So super handy to be able to do that. And so I've set up some sheets. And the last thing that I wanted to show real quick before I take some questions was a few different printing options. Let's just save this real quick because you should always save your files. 502 underscore here underscore deet for details. Okay, so we have set up our sheets. We want to plot them. So there are a couple options for this. First option, probably, I mean, they're all that I'm showing pretty easy, but this option is you open up each sheet file, you press Control P, or you right click on here and you go to plot, and you plot one at a time. Then you have to go through and do each one, and then afterwards to compile them, you open up like Adobe Acrobat or some kind of PDF editor and combine them that way. There is, I guess, some benefit to that. I remember doing this and being able to add in like dynamic links in the index to specific pages, which obviously only works in digital format, but that was kind of a neat thing to add in. Um, so there was some argument there for using like a Adobe Acrobat, but more likely than not, especially if you're using a lot of pages, a lot of sheets, you're going to want to batch plot these. And I'll show a way that I found was kind of easy using this method of file setup and everything to plot these out. And that is to open up your sheet set manager. Now you could go to like output here and do a batch plot. And the reason that I'm not showing this is because even though I've been working with CAD for 10 plus years or so, this dialog box scares me. There is just a lot going on. It automatically loads open drawings, and I'm sure there is a way to navigate and utilize this box very effectively. But I have always used other methods for plotting, and so I just always avoid this. But anyways, what I do is open up the sheet set manager. That's command SSM. And here we are with our sheet set manager. And we can very quickly create a new sheet set. That's this drop down here, existing drawings for that first option, give it a name. Let's say webinar example, choose a location for the data file, which is a DST file, which is basically the sheet set data. It's a separate file from your DWGs. So you can choose a place for those to be stored. You probably want to put that maybe in the project if you're going to be using sheet sets that you're working with. But so choose a place for that. Now, here's what I wanted to show. You can select folders containing drawings. So if I browse down to my sheets folder, which is another great reason for separating your different sheets into a single folder. All I got to do is choose this folder, click OK, and it's going to recognize what I've already set up. And they should say the sheet number that I gave it. I'm moving kind of fast and sporadically, so perhaps I skipped something there. But anyways, point here is that it quickly grabs those sheets that you already set up and recognizes that they're good to go. Click next and just verify the information is proper. Click OK. And so now we have all of our sheets into the sheet setup super quick. And so we're doing this for plotting purposes. We can now quickly batch plot this by a couple of different ways. There's buttons and stuff, but you can right click on the sheet set itself, go to publish and publish to PDF, and basically just choose where that's going to go. So let's just put it right on my desktop. And it should have Here are the sheets that we just set up. So very quickly, it batch plotted those PDFs, and you're ready to go. So this has been a fairly speedy run through of using the sheet index in a very, I guess, kind of quick and simple way. There's definitely more depth to it, especially when you start working with sheet sets and creating more complex text attributes for your title block and whatnot. But we have just a minute here, but if there's any pressing questions, I can definitely address those at this point.
Yeah, luckily not pressing questions, but if you do have any last minute questions, do get it in real quick. Was able to answer, I think the common questions was, on field objects in the title block and just as you can see, we're already out of time, so we went with a little bit of a simpler example with this webinar, but we were talking about going more into detail with the sheet set manager and with field objects in a follow-up webinar, which is scheduled for the spring. So you have that to look forward to, but also want to remind you to please let us know, like I said, if there are any particular, sheet wrangling issues that you've struggled with that you'd like to see addressed in a future webinar, let us know, because we do have a kind of a follow-up for this webinar scheduled in just a few months. But other than that, I guess, hey, we're going to say happy Friday and have a great and safe weekend.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.